Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Tuesday, the 10th of October. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning for the first time this week by Joshua Barry. How are we doing, Joshua?
Good. Bit tired, Derek, because I was working on a Muscat feature, and obviously Australia is a couple of hours ahead of us, isn't it? So, just a tad, yeah. But lots of interesting stuff to get into, to talk about. We're going to have with a look at detailed look at Clement over the weekend. We're going to have a detailed look at Muscat out later today, and so looking forward to getting into it and talking a bit more about the situation that they inherit.
Yeah, Clement and Muscat, the front runners for the vacant Rangers manager's job. We know that James Bisgrove and John Bennett speaking to prospective candidates in London this week. Hopefully it becomes a little bit clearer by the end of the week. As Joshua said, he has been speaking to some people on Kevin Muscat. I was speaking to, you've seen this morning, the video dropped with the Belgian football journalist Peter-Jan Cancun, who discussed in length about Philippe Clement. He knows him closely, so that's a very interesting video as well, folks, if you want to go and check it out. Both, I think, Joshua, before we go on and talk about Rangers, but I think both of them, we've discussed off here, both would be attractive options for me. I'm sort of in the middle. I'm not entirely sure who. I think I would be happy with either of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what people think after they read this piece. But I've spoken to people who've worked with him as a coach, and his backroom staff, and also who he's played under, who've played under him as a player and a captain, and lots of really interesting details. I think one of the main things is, one of the main rhetorics around the Muscat is that he's just taken off. He's picked up what Postecoglou's done and carried it on. And the more and more that I've kind of learned about it and looked into it, I think that's a bit unfair. If you look at the turnover of players at Marino's, the fact that I don't think Postecoglou had won a title in Australia with Melbourne Victory by the time he left. That's obviously it's not to say that he's done a very good job. But the point being that I think Muscat is very much his own man as well. All coaches obviously will have kind of mentors and people who they follow in the steps of, and it's been really interesting to kind of hear a little bit more about his personality, his style, his tactical details, how he adapts to opponents. Obviously in the Clement piece over the weekend with Thomas Buffel, we kind of had a wee bit more of a look at exactly what type of training he puts on and how that implements the style of play he's trying to create. So interesting to get a bit of a look behind the curtain at how these managers work, how either of them, I think both of them are quite clearly leaders in their own right. And that's an important thing, Derek, because as we'll come on to speak about, this, for me, this isn't a situation. I don't think you necessarily need an association with Rangers. I think the last two appointments show that. What I do think you need is stature, experience, a history of winning league titles. It's not just about obviously trying to play winning football and play good football, but I think either of these two people, Muscat and Clement, both have stature, both have experience as leaders, and you can obviously read the piece with Clement that was out over the weekend. You'll be able to read the piece on Muscat later today, and we'll have, I think, some members content maybe later in the week, kind of looking at that in a bit more detail as well.
Yeah. Before we continue, folks, quick word for our new podcast sponsors as well. We're delighted to say the show is now proudly sponsored by MPH Group, Scotland's award-winning family-run all-trades specialist covering all of mainland Scotland. If you're dreaming of a new kitchen or bathroom or needing a boiler installation, repair or service, then MPH Group has you covered, specialising in kitchens, bathrooms, boilers, and even home cover plans with flexible finance options available. They make your dream transformations come to life with over 20 years of experience in home improvements. And it gets even better. Every service you opt for automatically enters you into MPH's incredible holiday giveaway. Just picture yourself enjoying a 7-night stay at a luxurious 5-star Moon Palace Resort in Cancun, Mexico. So there you go, folks. Shout out to the MPH Group, the new podcast sponsors for the Rangers review. So thank you very much, guys. And there you go. If you're thinking about renovating part of your home, then give these guys a call. The important contact details are in the description box. And before I forget as well, so many of you, incidentally, have signed up to the website. 2 cracking offers on just now. £4 for just £4 for 4 months, or you can take out an entire year's worth of a subscription for just £18. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to sign up. Right, Joshua, we've discussed, I think, Clement and Muscat, the 2 leading candidates. Lots of comments coming in with regards to that. First of all, Chris McFarlane says, Derek with the room light on at 9:33 messaging. I did notice that in the background. I turned it on this morning when it was dark, but I've opened up my blind and it is not necessary. So that is just eating through my energy bills, but thanks for flagging that up. Doug says, morning lads, got to say the content of the last few days has been outstanding. Derek's interview last night, Josh's detailed manager story yesterday, and Chris Jack's one this morning. Yeah, Chris has got a great piece on there this morning on the website. Folks, do go and check it out. He talks about the new manager non-negotiables that John Bennett and James Bisgrove must provide. He's looked at 5 areas that the pair of them must consider during their interviews with the Rangers managerial hopefuls. Interesting piece on there, Joshua.
Yeah, it looks a bit at the entry, I guess, of what a new manager is going to have on their desk. And I think throughout this, obviously, Rangers, I think last Thursday was a bit of a crisis moment. Aris, obviously, I think people probably played down, did them a bit of a disservice as to the quality of team they are, but I still think that it's a team that Rangers, a good Rangers team would win that game 9 times out of 10 if they play to the best of their abilities. Obviously, they didn't, and Aris played very well and deserved their win. So not at all to take
champions. This talk is the worst result ever. It's a shocker because they blasted 6 goals past Slovan Bratislava, 6 past Bate Borisov this season. They won the Cypriot League. They spent a bit of money. Rangers should have done much better, yes, but this, given it it's the worst result ever, is way off the mark. It defies belief.
Yeah, but I think that even there, from saying 8 or 9 out of 10, 9 times out of 10, maybe is a bit unfair. But what I guess I'm trying to say with that is it was such a bad Rangers performance, and they were still, and they still arguably could have got something if they'd pushed on a little bit more in the last 20 minutes. The point being, it was, I think, a team that looked pretty lost out there.
Yeah,
a bit better against St Mirren at the weekend. I think St Mirren only had 1 shot. I think their expected goals was 0.04. Obviously, that comes into the fact that they were down to 10 men and they were maybe trying to hang on for the last 20 minutes, which Abdallah Sima's goal kind of would change the course of the game. But it very much felt like, okay, this is a bad situation. Rangers have lost 3 games in the first 7 now, their first 8. It needs new direction and it needs new energy. And I think that's still the case. Chris looks at what a new manager needs, and I know we're going to get into this morning that in a bit more detail, whether it be style of play, a track record of winning. But because I think what he had with Michael Beale last year was he did manage to stabilise things in the short term. I think it was his first 14 league games that he went unbeaten, and he wasn't able to build on stuff in the end. And this season, he was sacked just inside October, so that tells you what type of season it was. But he was able to kind of get that, I guess, short-term buy-in, which is the reason that although he didn't win any trophies, there was still that optimism going into the summer. And this is a difficult balance that Bisgrove and Bennett need to make, because they need someone who's going to win now. I don't think you can afford a transitional season. I know they've just come in, but you've got to think of the wider context of the Rangers support are not going to accept that at the best of times, let alone at the moment, let alone when they've been told there's going to be a rebuild this summer and 9 players are coming to the club. So you need a manager who I think is going to work within the structure that's there at the moment. I hope a manager is going to be working under a director of football or sporting director, because I think what this summer shows is it would be mental to not change that approach. To do the same thing again and be in that same situation next October, it's unthinkable. That can't be the case. So you need a manager who's going to be able to come in and work with what they've got now, but also build for the future. And that's a delicate balance. I think you need stature to do that. You need experience of working at big clubs. And you need to ultimately be a leader. Again, I don't think personally, don't know what you think, Derek, I don't think past association is necessary. I'm sure it can help. could be a benefit in other ways as well. But yeah, there's opportunity with this appointment as well, because there isn't that clear candidate. And I think as time's gone on, as people have looked more at Muscat and more at Clement, they've started to see that, yes, there's going to be risk in any approach, in any appointment, but I think they've started to see the potential benefits of those two names as well, and a bit of excitement's building at who it could be now.
Yeah, interestingly, when you said the director of football, I asked both Dan Orlowitz, who was a Japanese football journalist, about Kevin Muscat, and Peter Yan last night about whether these Clement and Muscat select their own players and go out and buy them, or whether they're more of a coach playing under a sporting director role. They both are mostly coaches working under sporting directors. So that would be an interesting one. If we get to January, Joshua, if it's, say, for example, Clement and Rangers still don't have a sporting director, who's going to identify and bring in the players?
Yeah, well, obviously there's a scouting department ahead of that department, and I do think that sometimes we get caught up too much in. I don't think the best sporting directors that we think of, I don't think they're the one. Let's take David Weir at Brighton. I don't think it's that David Weir is going out and he's sitting on Wisecout every morning. He might be, but I don't think he is sitting on Wisecout every morning and picking out these players from, whether it be the Ecuadorian league or they've signed players from Paraguay recently. I think what it more is as you know, as anyone who's watching will know, in whatever their job is, that if you've got people with different viewpoints, so let's take a manager. A manager has to think short-term results. I want players in now that are going to get me results, and maybe don't think too much about what the club needs to think about, which is safeguarding themselves, which is ensuring they maybe sign players who, okay, they might not be ready now, but they're going to be able to play for us longer and bring us in more money down the line, or they're going to be a player who, maybe we pick a player who has a more adaptable skill set, and instead of being really suited to one manager, they're a bit more broad. So I don't think it's a case of, I think most clubs will use some sort of committee style approach where it's not just one player. At times, I guess maybe a manager recommends. At times, it's maybe driven through an agent. At times, maybe there's a clear name that keeps coming up in the scouting shortlist. So I don't think it's so much that you need one player to oversee it. I just think you need strong leadership in that area, so that, look at Rangers at the moment. They've had Beale's come in and the squad has been very much built in his image, and now he's not there. Now, that's not to say that there's not redeeming players in the squad, although, I think a lot of them are still to show that. But I think there is, Sima, Danilo, Butland. I think that Cifuentes still needs to find a bit of a groove in this team. But I think you can see that he does have some credentials there, even if at points I think he's still getting up to the speed of Scottish football. But the point being, I think you need, at times, a manager will want a player in the short term, or a manager will have specifically identified a player. And I think Beale's control over transfers this summer was quite unique in the context of modern football, and it's maybe the sporting director's job as the lead of the department and the kind of head of football operations to then bring other points of view into consideration, and you come to a kind of mutual agreement. But I just think the more points of view in that decision making, you're going to have a more holistic kind of conclusion. And again, what I keep coming back to with a sporting director is it's not just about who signs the players. It's more about, and I think this is a difficult point because I don't think this has been done well at Rangers, so I don't think people have seen a sporting director do this well. But it should be that there's continuity between managers, whether that's play style or not. But you need someone to think, okay, is this managerial appointment, is it the right one for what we have? There needs to be continuity between transfer windows, so you don't have a case like Rangers had this summer where they have to totally rebuild things and it's about refreshment. So you just look at a manager's lifespan, it's short. A sporting director should be long. You look at a manager's decision making will be more about results. I think sporting director needs to think long term. So I think it's a really valid point. How do these managers work within a different kind of footballing structure? The reason I keep going on about a sporting director, and we spoke about it over summer, is I just think going forward, it's not a golden bullet. It's not going to solve everything, but I think it gives Rangers a better chance of not being in the situation that they've been the last two kind of Octobers and Novembers.
Yeah, and I'd imagine any prospective candidates would be asking, they'd be doing their due diligence themselves and asking what the structure is in place in terms of recruitment and the vision and what have you as well. So it'll be a two-way street with regards to that. But yeah, interesting. Incidentally, Nico Raskin was asked about Clement after the game on Sunday. His quotes, he said, I don't know him personally, but he did very well with the two teams he had in Belgium. He also did incredibly well at Monaco, so let's see what happens in the future. Would he be a good fit here? Yeah, I think he'd bring some clarity and an attacking style so I think he'd be good. And just on Michael Beale sacking, he said, it's a bit sad for everybody because the gaffer believed in everybody and put us on the field. We were in a bad spiral. Obviously, I can't really say too much. We weren't good enough to deserve the wins. Now it's time to look forward, to work hard, and then to grow. We'll take it game after game and look forward. He's another one that, I mean, Jack Butland aside, really, Joshua, and Abdallah Sima recently, there hasn't been too many players that have played anywhere near their potential and the standards we expect of them. Nico Raskin is one of them. Perhaps a Philip Clement might get the best out of him. Am I reading into that too much? Could Kevin Muscat perhaps get the best out of him as well?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of kind of standout performances from Raskin this season. I think you had his game away in Servette where the second half he was brilliant on that left-hand side and did a lot of running. But he's a really interesting player because when he first came in, did a piece with his manager at Standard Liège, and he said, look, he's not like a number 6 who's going to sit and dictate the tempo. And I think you've seen that. He's maybe not quite matured into that role where you'll rush passes at points. And I think that's good because it's boring if you just have midfielders who never take risks. But I don't think he's quite found a settled place this season in the team. And I think that comes into the fact that things have changed so frequently. At times he's been playing as a pressing number 8 on the left. At times he's been the number 6. At times he's been on the right. And I think that kind of has shown in his performances where he's not quite had that consistency. Whether he needs to play alongside someone who sits a little bit more, again, to go back to that piece when I spoke to his former manager, he spoke a lot about he needs the freedom to go and press, to go and join the attack, to get forwards, because he's not just someone who's going to do defensive work and sit and kind of dictate the play. But there's no doubt, I think, that there's a fantastic player in there, and you've seen that in lots of flashes since January. I think the task now for a new manager, if they're coming in, they'll look at Raskin and think there's someone I can build the midfield around. And again, through different matches, coming in such close proximity and switching from European to league games, I think one of the things that undone Beale at the end was the frequency with which he changed his team. We would all speak before the games saying, what is the strongest team going to be? And it kind of became a bit of a running joke. And I just think that for players like Raskin, they probably need that consistency of in their positioning. I think Muscat's football, it might work really well because they need someone who's press resistant and can carry the ball at the base of midfield. Clement, not just because of the Belgian links, but you'd imagine he's a manager who can not only develop and work with young players, which he's done a lot in Belgium, which I guess is an encouraging sign, but also get the best out of Raskin as well. It's an area of the pitch where you think, I don't think Raskin and Cifuentes are going to play as a midfield 2. So it's maybe an area that if a new manager comes in, you're looking at, do Rangers go and try and refresh that area in the summer, in the January window. But wherever he plays, I do think you've got to build that midfield around him and Campbell in there, because clearly they're Rangers' best 2 players. And again, maybe just that clarity of knowing their roles and it not changing as much will help, especially Raskin, to have those more consistent performances.
Yeah, when you say clarity there, Scott Hammond at his message then he said clarity again suggests players didn't know what their instructions were under Beale. Are we reading too much into that, do you think, Joshua? I mean, I know when I seen on social media when James Tavernier had his post-match interview after the win against Livingston, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. He said when Dujon came on, we didn't know we were playing, sort of thing, and sort of created a bit of debate on social media that players were going on not knowing what to do. Is that a fair comment? Did Michael Beale maybe overcomplicate things?
I think by the end, at the start, I think having a bit of freedom and flexibility and variation was a good thing, because towards the end of Steven Gerrard's time, which is obviously different, but Beale was there. Towards the end of Steven Gerrard's time, I think it became too predictable what Rangers were doing. They were always going to play those free number 10s. They played with 2 strikers towards the end of the 55 season, but it was more common to see them lining up that 4-3-2-1. And I think Beale introduced more variation, which was good. Again, I think what undone him was, because so many changes happened, and we wrote after the Old Firm game, I think it was 9 different starting 11s in 9 games.
Yeah.
I can't remember the kind of conclusion of that piece, but in effect it was saying, look, if Beale is to have any chance of coming back now and winning back the large element of the fan base that you lose with a performance and a result like that, then he needs to be effectively perfect in his results up until, I don't know, the next Old Firm game, or certainly for this international break. And the only way he was going to do that, I think, was by picking a real consistent team. And again, at the start, I thought it was a real strength of his time last season, but he had a more settled starting 11 last season, where yes, at times Tillman and Cantwell maybe changed their positions, but I think Sakala started 19 out of 23 games. Morelos played generally when he was fit. You had Kent in that free role, and I think there was more of a settled team. And this season, whether it was he was just trying to find the connections, he said on a couple of occasions that the team's taken longer to click than he thought it would. In the attacking third, players, I think, in the system have a lot of freedom, which worked well last season. But this season, I just don't. Whether it was so many new players coming into the attacking third or whatever, it certainly didn't look like attacking kind of free fluid football that he spoke about. And that's, I think, where the disconnect comes. So I guess when you get into that spiral, I mean, I don't know what you think about it, but it didn't look like there was a lot of clarity, and
no,
that feeds into the stands, doesn't it? And I think that's why Chris puts it back to you, but Chris speaks a lot about style of play. I think style is so important now, because not only because what the last few years have looked like, but people need to see something. It's not just about an aesthetic style of football, but people need to see something that they think
it's exciting.
Exciting, and they can believe in. I don't know what you think, but I think that's quite important.
I totally agree. This is Rangers we're talking about. It's not, no disrespect, Ross County, Kilmarnock are teams down there that have got different aims, more so let's sort of staying in the division and maybe trying to push for top six. This is Rangers we're talking about. We should be winning expecting to win every game and playing a style of football that excites the fans and makes the thousands turn up to Ibrox to spend hard-earned money. And let's be honest about it, it's a lot of money to follow Rangers. So I think we'd just like to see I'm just going to say a little bit more entertainment, but much better than what we've seen, not only just this season, but I think since Michael Beale came in, apart from Hibs and Hearts away games last season when he came in, the football on offer was not good to watch. So that is on the new manager, whoever comes in. I do like what I hear from both Kevin Muscat and Philip Clement, and like you say, Josh, I think either of them, I think, would bring an exciting brand of football to the club. Now, a lot of comments are coming in just with regards to that. The People's Champ message then. Muscat has always played a 4-3-3. My concern is we don't have the players for that right now. Clement also plays a 4-3-3, Joshua. So is that a problem?
That's an interest, and this is what the piece kind of touches on today. Just to touch on Muscat first, this season he's played more of a 4-2-3-1. His fullbacks are less inverted and build up, and more about that they'll make kind of interesting runs in the final third. So my point being, I think it's a less specialised. You don't need specific players for that compared to fullbacks are coming inside and actually acting as extra midfielders. But one of the people I was speaking to in this piece today, who's worked with Muscat as his assistant in Japan, I kind of asked him about that, and he spoke about how adaptable Muscat is to the players that he's got. I think something we perhaps haven't quite acknowledged in this whole discussion over the last couple of weeks is that Muscat has lost a lot of players in Japan, and I think his team, Marinos, despite the fact they're second in the league, I think their budget is 6th or 7th or 8th in the league. So there's not been loads of money to reinstate it. What I would say about Muscat is I think Muscat, and again, to go back to the piece, a lot of comments about him, he'll adapt in what he does off the ball, but on the ball will be quite similar. And his principles are he wants to get forward quickly, he wants to attack dynamically, vertically, and get into the final third. And there's attacking patterns that are quite identifiable within that. So I think he will adapt to the players that he has, but I think it will be about players fitting into a system, which is kind of what the comment suggests there. The person I was talking to also compared him to Postecoglou, said he's a little bit more focused on his defensive structure. Clement, I think, would be a little bit more adaptable. I don't think he's only going to play a 4-3-3. He played a 5 at the back in Belgium at points when he went into the Champions League as well. And I don't think we need to get too caught up in formations. I think it's more about what the new manager's asking players to do. If the new manager were to come in tomorrow, Derek, and let's say the Hibs game, when Rangers have no wingers effectively fit, they have Sima, but Sima's not. He's a wide forward for me. He's not a natural touchline hugging winger. Yeah. So if you're reliant then on wingers in the final third who are going to pick the ball up from deep and drive at the opposition, I don't think you have that. But maybe if you have managers who can adapt that and say, okay, we still want our dynamic play to come from wide areas, but we're going to tailor it slightly to the type of players that we have. I think that's the sweet spot. And I think Clement's more probably what the comments suggest there. He's maybe more on the adaptable side, because he's not just a purely systems-based manager, again, with hopefully what comes out in this Muscat piece as well, is that although he does have a clear style of play, he's had to adapt a lot to the players he worked with throughout his career, and most recently in Japan. He's lost a lot of players at Marinos, and still been able to kind of produce that style of football, which players can learn it. You need to sign specific styles of players for it as well, Derek. But whoever comes in the short term, this is a squad they got to work with for a while. You've got a League Cup up until then. So this is why it needs to be, it can't just be a manager comes in. He's not got pre-season. It can't just be a manager who comes in and it's his way or the highway. They're going to have to adapt to the tools that they have at the moment.
Yeah, and some interesting points just coming in off the back of that. Just on Clement, Origami Dinosaur has watched that video this morning with the Belgian journalist. He says, I like the sound of Clement favouring youth players would suit our business model. And Ian Edwards, just off the back of that, says, Clement working with Zeb Jacobs excites me. Both Belgian, of course, building blocks for bringing in the youth to the team. Another person he also worked with before, Joshua, that I totally forgot before Peter Yan mentioned last night, was Cyril Dessers at Genk.
Yeah,
got a tune out of him when Genk went and won the league over there. Could that be what Cyril needs perhaps to reignite his Rangers career, which is looking like it's heading towards the exit already?
Yeah, I wasn't at the game at the weekend because I was meant to be there, but I got stuck in all the flooding on the roads. So it was just Chris there, and I had to race back home. But the reason I'm saying that is it sounded like Dessers kind of got a bit of support when he was coming off the bench. Anyone who's there can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but
he missed a great chance. Though.
He sliced
no
it
whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. But I think people will always get behind players at Rangers, but I think when they've not seen enough, I think Lammers, for example, I don't think I was really excited about him coming in the summer. I don't think he's impacted games nearly enough. I think there's been a few fine moments like that miss against Celtic or Servette where you see this as a player who's not got confidence, but I still think you can see there's, in terms of like technical quality or the way he turns with the ball, I think you can see there's a lot there. But that's just my opinion. Another manager, I think he might be able to harbour that. I don't think with Dessers you've seen at all, really, apart from at times he can maybe be clever in the way he presses, like the PSV goal, where he's got a good final ball. I don't think you've seen at all. He's not holding the ball up. He's not really able to run in behind. I don't think his movement is really comparable to Danilo's yet. I guess the thing is, there will be qualities within there that have earned him these moves in the past, or as you say, have led to him having a good spell at Genk. But because people haven't seen it yet, you can understand why there's such frustration. So be interested. I might go and look back at that at some point today and see how he was playing. Maybe he was just a bit younger. I know he had an injury just before he came to Rangers as well. But if he could turn around Cyril Dessers' Rangers career, then that would be impressive, because he has had a really difficult start to life at Rangers. And you were just kind of willing him when that ball went through the weekend. You're kind of willing him to at least get a good connection with it. But yeah, he didn't, and I think that was kind of just indicative of his start so far, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, just rounding up on Clement, I was told that Al Shabab are keen on him. They did want him in the summertime, and they're still sort of chasing him. But and there was a third club have apparently inquired about Clement as well. We do know that there are a number of English clubs looking for new managers as well. So if Rangers want their man, then certainly they're going to have to make sure that they ward off any potential suitors, because it looks like he is a man in demand. Andy Wilson, just harping back to your point about having a previous relationship with the club, Joshua. Andy Wilson says, I think Muscat is our only option at the moment. He knows what it's like to wear the royal blue. People like Lampard and Parker will be clueless. I don't think we need to worry about Losa. I know Scott Parker was linked yesterday, but I would be amazed if he was to be named the new Rangers manager. Frank Lampard, we know, has been ruled out, but he's well on board the Muscat train. And Craig McFarlane with the point says, morning team, I'm leaning toward Clement, but would be happy with Muscat also. Anyone who can get some passion and energy back into the team. That's all what we're looking for. I think in terms of the short term, as you said, Joshua, it's all about getting results. I mean, Michael Beale was tasked with this last season about just getting an underperforming side back winning football matches again. He did say, I know he said after a match at Tannadice that was doing its rounds again, that he said that we're not Real Madrid just yet. Don't think we ever quite got there. Well, we didn't. But I think we just want to see winning football, but we just want to see something and seeing a sort of style of play develop, don't we? Will we give the manager more time, do you think, to get that right? Or is it all about winning matches with that huge League Cup semi-final on the horizon?
Again, I think you need, what Beale got last season was he unbeaten in his first 14. We're talking about style of play. I think he places a lot of emphasis on what his team do off the ball as well. So there was an upturn. There was a reason he was able to build that optimism. I just don't think he was able to build it this season. But you need that. If, let's say, either of these two people we're talking about today or anyone else who it could be, because I think the interviews are still ongoing today, as I understand it. If they come in and they have a really bad start, it's difficult. Is it because you know what it's like? Then people will think the wrong appointment's been made, and then you're facing an uphill battle. However, I think what a manager will look at as well, if they're opportunistic, they'll see if it's Muscat, it's a chance to work in European football. If it's Clement, it's a chance to work for a huge club and do well here for a few years, maybe make it down to the Premier League. And there's a League Cup final there, which can be they'll look at that and think that could be a real springboard up until before you look ahead to the old firm towards the end of the year or the start of next year. Can't remember when it is. You've got a European group which you should be able to progress from. Obviously, the result last week makes that more difficult, but you still had that
should good still result. Be good enough to progress from that group, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to look at it and think, do you know what, this is an opportunity to go and pick up a club where the mood is so low. You know, that's difficult, but also presents opportunity as well. So whoever comes in is going to need a quick start. I think they will need to let the football do the talking and maybe be a bit more reserved in their press conferences. But I think either of these names will get an element of the support excited. I think because there's not a clear name and there's risks with all names attached, there won't be a unanimous buy-in. Maybe, but you need to earn that buy-in, don't you? And the way you'll do that is by winning matches as well, but as you say, exciting people, showing them why they should get excited in your project. And that European campaign in the League Cup just presents the opportunity of a big springboard to have a successful Rangers career if you can be successful in both of those tournaments.
Yeah, Muscat and Clement obviously high on the list of probable replacements for Michael Beale. Pascal Janssen seems to be gone a little bit quiet around him. He was heavily linked before. Now I'm going to be speaking to a Dutch journalist who covers AZ Alkmaar in about an hour's time, folks. That'll be out initially on the members channel on YouTube. Anyway, I'm going to have a chat with him just to find out what sort of coach he is as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And just to remind you as well, we have launched the Rangers Review WhatsApp group. Hundreds of you have signed up already. There's only 2,000 spaces on there. You get access to exclusive videos and links to breaking news, latest news as we get it as well in terms of the managerial hunt and other bits and pieces. Talking about bits and pieces, I'll just get your thoughts on this before we wrap up, Joshua. In fact, just I'll finish up in the WhatsApp. I'll post the link in the comments section. So if you want to join, folks, click on that and you can join up. Ryan Jack's pulled out the Scotland squad. He has missed, of course, the last few games, a couple of games at Rangers as well. It's just something that we've just come to expect, unfortunately, with Ryan Jack. I know he did sign that year extension. Unfortunately, just his body just letting him down again.
Yeah, I mean, I think he at points when he signed that new contract, there was a stat. I think it was Beale actually said he's been available for 75 or 80% of the games he's been there. So yes, I don't think it's new. He's obviously someone who really needs to manage his body. He wants to be involved in the national team who are in a great moment, but it's an area of the pitch where Rangers don't have that much depth at the moment, especially at the base of midfield. So he'll be needed for whatever new manager comes in. So fingers crossed it's nothing serious and he's back soon. Because any new manager, whether whoever it may be, if there is one in place for that Hibs game, they'll need depth in that position of the pitch. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. Huge thanks to Joshua and to everyone for interacting with the show as ever. It is greatly appreciated. Lots on the website, as we mentioned earlier on, and lots on the YouTube channel as well to keep you entertained. Right, we'll speak to you again tomorrow if I don't speak to you later on today. Until then, bye for now and enjoy your Tuesday.